This is Today As It Happened. Good Wednesday evening to you. I'm Stephanie Liebergen here with your chronological look at the biggest events and stories of the day. This morning, we took a look at the FBI wanting to interview 6 Democratic lawmakers over a social media video. The 6 lawmakers who urged U.S. military members to defend the Constitution and oppose illegal orders have been contacted by the FBI to schedule interviews. This comes after the Pentagon announced an investigation into Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona over potential violations of military law. President Trump called the lawmakers' actions seditious and punishable by death. The moves by the FBI and the Pentagon really mark a change for both organizations that have largely stayed away from partisan political fights in the past. Senator Alyssa Slotkin addressed the FBI investigation while she was visiting a fire station in her home state of Michigan.
Last night, the Counterterrorism Division at the FBI sent a note to the members of Congress saying they are opening what appears to be an inquiry against the 6 of us. To be honest, the president's reaction and the use of the FBI against us is exactly why we made the video. He believes in using the federal government against his perceived adversaries.
Scripps News Deputy Political Director Joe St. George joining me now live from Capitol Hill to talk more about what's really the next step, the next level of this story we've been talking about all week long now, Joe. So first we got the Pentagon investigation, now FBI investigations. What's next? Where does this, apparent conflict go from here?
Well, for what next to happen, there needs to be a clear answer given as to what crimes that these senators may have violated with this social media video. After all, first you have an inquiry that usually leads into a formal investigation that could lead into charges, but it's not abundantly clear right now what crimes these senators are accused of potentially violating. Here, we at least have an inquiry beginning, all this transpiring late Monday night, a statement from the group of Democratic lawmakers, mostly veterans of the militaries, including one former CIA analyst, that CIA analyst being Senator Slotkin, but a statement reading in part that President Trump is using the FBI as a tool to intimidate and harass members of Congress. These are what 4 members of the House wrote. No amount of intimidation or harassment will ever stop us from doing our jobs and honoring our Constitution. A reaction from the Democratic lawmakers now facing these questions. The FBI apparently first reached out to the House Sergeant of Arms as well as the Senate Sergeant of Arms to begin the interview process here. This is a clear cross-agency effort to try and bring down these lawmakers who posted on that social media video encouraging members of the military to not follow illegal orders. Earlier in the week, the Pentagon launched an investigation into Senator Mark Kelly. Mark Kelly, we've learned, again, he's a retired member of the military. He's subject to the Uniform Code of Military Justice. The other veterans lawmakers, they are not. Were honorably discharged, not formally retired military. That's why Senator Kelly's facing a Pentagon investigation here. Secretary Pete Hegseth has said that he's requesting a status update on this by December 10th. So as far as the next steps goes here, it may be a while before we see if the Pentagon goes through with the potential court-martial of Senator Kelly. It's possible that Senator Kelly could be called back to active duty over this. At the same time, we'll be waiting to see what the FBI does. Is this just an interview process meant to almost embarrass these lawmakers, or does this potentially lead to some sort of a grand jury? Questions all that are unclear on this Wednesday before Thanksgiving, but given the fact that the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth, is giving up until December 10th for a status update here. We're going to be talking about this story for quite some time, Stephanie. Here's more from Senator Slotkin of Michigan being asked and questioned about all of this, including this new FBI investigation.
People disagree with me every single day. Does that mean that I should be investigated by the FBI and that the President of the United States should suggest that I be hung?
Democrats in Capitol Hill are united, though. They believe this is a clear weaponization now of the Department of Justice by President Trump, having agents do the president's bidding, if you will. Leader Hakeem Jeffries encouraging his Democratic caucus to stand up and fight these lawmakers. If an apology is what President Trump is looking for, Stephanie, thus far he has not gotten one. These lawmakers are standing by their words.
Certainly a story we're going to need to continue to follow as we find out what maybe comes from these interviews with the FBI and, of course, that December 10th deadline by Secretary Pete Hegseth. But I want to ask you about another story, Joe, that is also one where we don't have a lot of clarity, and that's a potential peace deal between Ukraine and Russia. But we've been here before. Do you think this time is any different? Do you think this potential deal could actually get across the finish line?
There still seems to be a lot of optimism. And one of the storylines I was watching this morning to see if President Putin put any criticism or shot down any prospect of a meeting. And he also seems to be beating the optimistic drum on this front. There isn't a deal. There's no deal until there's a deal, right? Until everything's agreed to, nothing's agreed to. If you could have 25 of the most significant boxes checked, but it's box number 26 that's unchecked that may be the thing that torpedoes an entire deal. We do know, though, that this is now going to enter a bit of a holding pattern, this story, and that's because it's not as if Steve Witkoff, the president's really top diplomat on this issue, is going to be meeting with President Putin tomorrow or Friday. President Trump clarifying on Air Force One last night that Mr. Witkoff will be in Russia next week. So all eyes are on Russia to see whether or not they still view the potential terms of this agreement satisfactory. This week began with much of the world believing that Russia was on board because the terms were more favorable to them. We know there were tweaks and changes by Ukraine and Europe advocated for by Zelensky and others in recent days. Do those tweaks and changes still make it possible for Putin to get to a hypothetical yes here? There was a Thursday deadline, Thanksgiving deadline at one point for all of this. Last night on Air Force One, the president said, look, the only deadline that I care about at this point is getting this done. So that Thursday deadline now also out the window. Here's more from President Trump aboard Air Force One.
We're having some talks with Russia. Ukraine is doing well. I think they're pretty happy about it. They'd like to see it end. And we won't know for a little while, but we're making progress.
We won't know for a little while. We're making progress. Again, can this come together before the calendar shifts to 2026, bringing an end to the longest, bloodiest war in Europe since the end of World War II? It's a big question mark. Bottom line, we're reading tea leaves, right, Steph? We do that from time to time. There's still positivity happening. So as long as there's still positivity happening, and there's still a chance that this thing could come together. We know President Trump wants to meet with President Putin and President Zelensky in person, really to seal the deal, cross the T's, dot the I's. But the president's made clear he doesn't want to get there until they're really there, until they're really on the doorstep of a historic peace accord. Something to watch. We'll be watching for several days now.
Exactly. And as long as talks are continuing to happen, there's certainly, I think that hope is going to continue, that there might someday be a compromise that both Ukraine and Russia could agree to. Scripps News Deputy Political Director Joe St. George, as always, thank you very much. Some other headlines we're following for you this morning. The White House is floating a new health care plan, but it's already hitting roadblocks with Republicans in Congress. Republicans can't agree whether they want to overhaul the Affordable Care Act, make small changes, or let the subsidies expire completely. Those COVID-era tax credits are due to expire at the end of the year, and that would mean sharp premium increases for millions of Americans, potentially making health insurance unaffordable for some. Democrats who shut down the government for 6 weeks over this issue, now they want to see a straight extension of the subsidies with no changes. But some Democrats say they could support a plan similar to what the White House is reportedly proposing, but it's not clear exactly if or when the White House plan will be officially released. And as the president left Washington for the Thanksgiving holiday, he said he was against a long-term extension of those subsidies.
I don't want to extend them for 2 years. I'd rather not extend them at all.
Will you do it?
It may be some kind of an extension may be necessary to get something else done.
The Trump administration is continuing a program that started under President Biden, negotiating lower drug prices through Medicare. Tuesday, the administration announced new prices for 15 medications. Those savings could save Medicare about $12 billion a year. The list includes popular weight loss drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy, also includes diabetes treatments and medications that cover and help with asthma, cancer, depression, neurological conditions. All these new prices are due to go into effect in 2027, and Medicare Part D enrollees will save an estimated $685 million in out-of-pocket costs. You're watching Today's It Happened. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome back to Today's It Happened. Let's check back in on our daily briefing of today's top stories. We're continuing to follow breaking news this morning. A historic racketeering case in Georgia against President Trump and his allies for attempting to overturn the 2020 presidential election. Well, that case has been formally dropped. I'm Scripps News' Stephanie Liebergen, and you are watching On the Scene. I want to bring in our Scripps News congressional correspondent, Nathaniel Reed, who's joining me now live here in studio to talk more about this case, what it means, how we got here. So, Nate, we'll start with what it means. What does this official dismissal or dropping of the case really mean now?
Well, it means it's gone for now. This is not something that President Trump has to worry about any longer. And to be clear, it didn't really seem like he was all too concerned. This case kind of left the public lexicon after that massive blow-up that we saw last year with Fani Willis, the chief prosecutor in Georgia, the district attorney for Fulton County, then accused of impropriety, effectively, for engaging in a relationship with the lead prosecutor in this case, someone who worked in her office named Nathan Wade. Ultimately, that culminated in a number of very high-profile judicial hearings in the state of Georgia, where everything was kind of brought to light about their relationship. There was a lot of, behind closed doors details that were made clear. She wasn't, to be clear, exactly convicted of anything, but at the same time, there was certainly an air of impropriety around the whole thing. Ultimately, Nathan Wade, that lead prosecutor, did resign. She was eventually pulled off the case because of those allegations of impropriety. Ultimately, it went to a different body in Georgia, effectively a nonpartisan outfit that is in charge of prosecuting kind of cases that have been removed. Ultimately, the lead prosecutor for that case basically saying that Jack Smith's indictment in Washington was the best route of trying to prosecute this case, and that the Georgia case is not something that they were looking to move forward with. Ultimately, a judge agreeing with them in a one-paragraph statement, basically dropping this indictment. It could be brought again if the statute of limitations allows, but at the same time, a lot of questions about whether President Trump will ever face accountability in Georgia for the allegations behind this trial. To be clear, it seems like this case is pretty much dead for now.
Right. Well, this is one of the cases that, even had it gone forward, could not be touched by a presidential pardon because it is a state case,
Correct.
not a federal case. So the president couldn't have hypothetically pardoned himself had that case moved forward.
Well, some of President Trump's detractors were hoping for just that. The fact that there were these active state cases. At one point, there were cases in New York involving, of course, Letitia James, the New York Attorney General, who President Trump has now targeted with mortgage fraud charges through his appointed U.S. Attorney in the Eastern District of Virginia, Lindsay Halligan. Ultimately, those charges appear to be dropped for now. The Trump administration did appeal that ruling because they said that Halligan was not lawfully appointed. But it was not just Tish James. It was also, in the state of Georgia, Fani Willis. These were kind of viewed as, I think, by some who wanted to see the president face accountability as the most likely avenue outside of the Jack Smith charges run through the a special counsel in D.C., the most likely routes for him to face accountability for what happened in 2020. There was obviously that well-publicized phone call where he called the Georgia Secretary of State and said that he was looking for a certain number of votes, which would have made him the victor in the 2020 federal election in Georgia. Ultimately, this case kind of fizzling out over the past year or so as Fani Willis has faced these allegations of impropriety, and as the case was kind of unceremoniously taken from her, moved over to another prosecutor who effectively said, I don't think Georgia is the right avenue to pursue these charges. Obviously, Jack Smith's indictment, that has wound down as well. That is entirely over. There's an effort among House Republicans looking into that case, trying to get some of the files from that prosecution over to Congress through subpoenas. Again, a lot of questions about whether we will ever see any continuation with these cases, but it seems very likely that most of the prosecutions, culminating in this one in Georgia against President Trump, over his alleged role in trying to manipulate the outcome of the 2020 election result, those appear to be pretty much all gone as of today.
Pretty much wrapped up right now, something that I would imagine the president will be happy about.
Certainly a Thanksgiving treat.
Probably a Truth Social post coming in our near future related to this case. Daniel Reed,
Thank you.
Congressional correspondent. Thank you very much. And now let's take a look at some of our other top headlines of the day. And if you're heading over the river and through the woods for Thanksgiving, it might get a little wild in the upper Midwest and Great Lakes, and it all started yesterday. This dash cam video shows a pickup truck almost hitting first responders who were assisting other drivers in the North Dakota area. At least 8 inches of snow fell across the state, leading to stranded vehicles across highways and interstates, and for a while on Wednesday, highways in the Fargo area were completely closed. In nearby Minnesota, it was semi-trucks jackknifed on the roadway that caused problems. No injuries, but a long stretch of vehicles were put out of commission. And more travel delays are expected today at major airports from Chicago to New York. And that's not all. It's also lake effect snow season, something to watch out for around the Great Lakes on Wednesday. The most significant concern so far this fall. Through Thanksgiving and potentially into Friday, that snow could stretch from Michigan to northwest Pennsylvania and into New York. Travel could be dangerous with wind gusts up to 50 miles an hour in some areas. And if you're traveling by air, you may be wondering what Thanksgiving favorites you can take on your carry-on through TSA checkpoints. The agency says any meats, smoked, cooked, or frozen are okay, as well as baked goods, mac and cheese, veggies, spices, all good to go. But some things you may want to leave behind, things in glass containers or cans, like gravy, alcohol, and cranberry sauce. But it seems like many of you don't even feel like cooking this holiday season. According to booking platform OpenTable, reservations for holiday dinners are 13% higher than last year. But it's not likely because the cost is savings versus cooking at home. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says restaurant prices are rising faster than shopping at a grocery store and inflation. But if you're not into packing or eating turkey, this might be the trend for you. Adopting a turkey. Farm sanctuaries across the country are promoting this new alternative to a Thanksgiving dinner. At one farm in Colorado, just $25 lets you claim a turkey for your own, donating to the bird's overall care. You'll even get photos and a certificate, and sometimes even some one-on-one time with your gobbling friend. You can find turkey sanctuaries from New York to California. Just ahead on Today As It Happened.
Our concern right now is getting a single mother out of a nice hellhole in Louisiana. We have no idea why she was detained. She wasn't given any explanation at all. And her relationship with the press secretary for the White House appears to be happenstance.
Welcome back to Today As It Happened, Scripps News end-of-day snapshot of our biggest stories of the day. So let's pick back up where we left off.
Seems no one is immune from those immigration raids, not even the family of the White House press secretary. A woman with a family connection to Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt is now being held by ICE. Her attorney confirms she is a native of Brazil. She is the mother of Leavitt's nephew. Scripps News investigative correspondent Patrick Terpstra is live in our D.C. newsroom. And Patrick, does she face deportation?
She absolutely does, Del. She is locked up right now in Louisiana awaiting deportation hearings. Her name is Bruna Caroline Ferreira, and she is the mother of an 11-year-old boy who is also the nephew of White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt. She shares custody of that 11-year-old with Leavitt's brother, Michael. The two of them are still in close contact but do not live together. All of this began with that traffic stop earlier this month in November in the suburbs of Boston, where she was ultimately detained by ICE and sent down to Louisiana. According to the White House and the Department of Homeland Security, she is a, quote, criminal illegal alien, something that the attorney disputes the attorney representing Ferreira, saying that she came to the United States as a child in the mid-90s and overstayed a 1999 visa at the time. Again, she was a child, just about 5 years old when this happened in 1999. And according to Homeland Security, there is a charge she faced at some point for battery, but that is something that the attorney tells us simply is not true. The attorney saying that she does not have any criminal record. So she continues to fight this, all the while the attorney is saying they do not believe that there is any sort of connection here with Caroline Leavitt. They do not believe that Ferreira was targeted. Take a listen.
Our concern right now is getting a single mother out of a nice hellhole in Louisiana. We have no idea why she was detained. She wasn't given any explanation at all. And, her relationship with the press secretary for the White House appears to be happenstance.
And that attorney saying that she was arrested on her way to actually go to school to pick up her son, that 11-year-old boy, who again is the nephew of Caroline Leavitt. We reached out to the White House in hopes of getting comment from Leavitt. We got a statement back from someone who asked to be referred to as a source close to the situation, who said that Leavitt and Ferreira, the detained woman, have not spoken in years. Del.
Scripps News investigative correspondent Patrick Terpstra live for us in our D.C. newsroom. Patrick, as always, thank you.
Just ahead on Today's It Happened, with President Donald Trump back in Palm Beach to celebrate Thanksgiving and much of the federal government closing for the holiday, what happens next with the efforts to release more of the Epstein files? Stay with us for Scripps News correspondent Alex Miller's reporting on where things go from here. It's after the break. Welcome back to Today's It Happened, Scripps News end-of-day snapshot of our biggest stories of the day. So let's pick back up where we left off.
The Justice Department now has a little more than 3 weeks to release any files related to its Jeffrey Epstein investigation. It comes after Congress quickly passed that legislation compelling the department to do so. President Trump signing that bill into law despite months of calling the entire situation a Democrat hoax. Scripps News national correspondent Alex Miller is live in New York right now. And Alex, is there confidence that this deadline will lead to a massive document dump?
Well, there is looming concerns on both sides of the aisle in Congress, I should say. We just saw Congressman Thomas Massie, who led that bill that was eventually signed into law. We saw him comment on an interview that was recently done with FBI Director Kash Patel, where he was asked specifically about whether they would be turning over information. And Patel essentially said that they are working, the FBI, with the Department of Justice to figure out what documents they can release. Now, look at this tweet from Congressman Massie. He said he found this response to be deflective. He did not feel as though this was a thorough enough response. Of course, the law that he is talking about says that they need to turn over all documents with redactions if necessary. But in that law, it says that the Department of Justice has to explain any redactions that they do. Anything that they decide to redact, they have to say why, and that is to prevent them from redacting things that might just be simply unflattering to people. Now, Democratic sources on the committee tell me that there's also a concern there. They tell me that in their opinion, they're calling this an intense White House cover-up that's happening now, likely, they told me, directed by the president and facilitated by the Attorney General. They sent Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, this letter just 5 days ago talking about their concerns, and they wrote in this letter that they're reminding them that the subpoena that they issued, the investigative committee issued a subpoena, that is separate from the legislation that we saw the president sign last week. What that means is that the subpoena is not allowed to have redactions. Of course, when you look at a piece of legislation and you see that these redactions are going to come, that is because the public does not need to know certain information. But this letter from Democrats just a couple of days ago reminds the Department of Justice that it is not the same rules for the committee, that they expect to see everything without redactions. And they also have been receiving materials from Jeffrey Epstein's estate directly. When looking at the two, they were This source basically said that the information that they're getting from the Department of Justice so far is not even close to as thorough as the information they have received from the Epstein estate, and that they expect to continue to receive more information from the estate as well.
Alex, now to the grand jury testimony. This summer we saw two separate New York judges rule against releasing that testimony in both Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell's cases, as well as one down in Florida. Are we going to see the same thing happen?
We're seeing those same requests made right now, and we saw those denials this summer. The judges essentially saying there's not that much in here. You didn't provide sufficient reason for why you need these files. And on top of it, they say these grand jury files are in the main file. So if you release the files, you'll see the grand jury testimony. They did not want to touch this. We are seeing now the Department of Justice ask all three of those judges again to release the grand jury files. Same exact request. This time, though, they say they have a reason, that it's because this bill was signed into law and that they need to see it. Now, this is an rapidly evolving situation. They say public production of the grand jury material is required because of this law. And just last night, a judge in New York, the one in charge of Maxwell's case, put out a filing saying that by December 3rd, next Wednesday, both Maxwell's team and victims needed to submit letters talking about what they wanted to see redacted, any concerns that they had, so that this could be done rather quickly. All of these requests have been asked to be expedited, obviously, because of this 30-day deadline for the Department of Justice. And just in the last couple of minutes, there was a response by the Department of Justice specifically to this judge. The judge wanted to know what kinds of things they would be considering publishing, and essentially the Department of Justice says they're actually conferring with the victims right now, which, by the way, has not happened really at all. They've not interviewed victims, but they did say they're conferring with them to figure out what they want to see redacted, whether they want their names redacted, that kind of thing. And they were also asked what kind of things they're going to be producing. And they gave a very long list that I'm still working through, but already what I've seen: search warrants, financial records, travel records, subpoena records that the grand jury saw from internet providers, records from various agencies, school records, arrest reports, booking records. You get the idea. They are planning to release a lot of very detailed information. And so we are waiting to see what letters they submit to the judge to explain what they want to see redacted, and whether any of these judges are going to agree to this after just denying it a couple of months ago.
You know, Alex, even without the release of the files, both the Democrats and the Republicans on the House committee say they're pushing forward, even widening their investigation. Mm-hmm. What have they told you about their plans?
Yeah, they do say that they're widening their investigation. Some things they agree on, some things they don't. Now, during the government shutdown, there was a list of people that were going to be interviewed behind closed doors by the committee, and those included both former President Bill Clinton, former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton. They were on the list. Now, that was postponed, I think, in part because of the shutdown. Now the Republicans on the committee are asking them to come back and testify December 17th and December 18th. That is, remember, just 2 days, 1 day before that December 19th deadline that we expect to see these files released. So that is on the record there. And then Democrats have told me that they are planning to widen this investigation, that they want to go after financial records. They've already been able to look at 2 specific banks, but there's plans to do more. They want to hear from Maxwell. Both sides are in agreement that they want to hear from Ghislaine Maxwell, TBD, about whether that actually happens. And then they have tried to hear from former Prince Andrew. Obviously, we know his title was revoked. They made a request that he come testify. That has been denied. So far, he has not agreed to that. And essentially what the Democrats have told me is that they don't believe there's really any legal mechanism that they can, compel him to do so. But the UK's Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, putting out a statement to The Guardian just yesterday about this, saying he didn't want to comment specifically on a particular case, but he said, as a general principle, I've held for a very, very long time that anybody who has got relevant information in relation to these kinds of cases should give that evidence to those who need it. So, there's a possibility that we could hear from Andrew. Obviously, he is very involved in this case with the allegations, particularly with Virginia Giuffre, and knowing that he was a very close friend of Jeffrey Epstein, rode on his plane multiple times, so surely he has a lot of information that the committee wants to hear.
Scripps News national correspondent Alex Miller live in New York for us. Alex, as always, thank you.
Straight ahead on Today's It Happened.
What we've been told is that the shooting happened near the Farragut West Metro stop. That would be the subway station that is behind me here, where you see dozens of law enforcement personnel gathered right now.
I'm Del Walters in Washington. You are watching Scripps News on the Scene, where we are following developing news. The Associated Press reporting that 2 members of the National Guard have been shot in Washington, D.C., near the White House. These are live images coming from a camera station there. At this moment, we don't know what their conditions are or if a suspect has been arrested. A joint D.C. task force confirming that they were responding to an incident in the vicinity. The White House, by the way, is vacant. The president is not there. He flew to Palm Beach last night.
So we do have, in the last couple of moments, something from the White House press office. The White House is aware and actively monitoring the tragic situation. Again, President Trump is in Florida at the Mar-a-Lago Club. He is not currently at the White House. The president has been briefed, that according to the White House press secretary. Also, in the last couple moments, we just heard from the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, just in the last 2 seconds here, posting on X, quote, "Please join me in praying for the 2 National Guardsmen who were just shot moments ago in Washington, D.C. DHS Gov is working with local law enforcement to gather more information. As far as we understand, this right now is being headed up by the D.C. Police Department. The area where this shooting occurred, 17th and I Street, that was kind of at the heart of where National Guardsmen have been, somewhat near the White House, somewhat near downtown, for much of this surge of policing. Again, shootings in downtown D.C. have become extremely rare, in part because of that elevated security posture and laws the District of Columbia has passed, along with steps that were taken at both the federal and national level to try and secure Washington, D.C., that surge of law enforcement that we saw from President Trump over the summer. It was the D.C. Police Department that in just the last couple seconds put out a post on X saying, update, the scene is secured, 1 suspect is in custody. And I mean, Del, now the question will immediately turn to, first of all, the condition of those 2 National Guardsmen who were shot in Washington, but also the motive, the question of why this was done. The president posting this on True Social a short time ago. The animal that shot the 2 National Guardsmen, with both being critically wounded and now in 2 separate hospitals, is also severely wounded, but regardless, will pay a very steep price. God bless our great National Guard and all of our military and law enforcement. These are truly great people. I, as President of the United States, and everyone associated with the Office of the Presidency, am with you.
What we've been told is that the shooting happened near the Farragut West Metro stop. That would be the subway station that is behind me here, where you see dozens of law enforcement personnel gathered right now.
At approximately 2:15 this afternoon, members of the D.C. National Guard were on high visibility patrols in the area of 17th and I Street Northwest when a suspect came around the corner, raised his arm with a firearm and discharged it at the National Guard members. The National Guard members, there were other members that were in the area. They were able to, after some back and forth, able to subdue the individual and bring them into custody. Within moments, members of law enforcement in the area were also able to assist and bring that individual into custody. At this time, as the director mentioned, the National Guard members are being treated at a local hospital. DC Fire and EMS responded to the scene to provide first aid for those individuals and transport them to a local hospital. The suspect in this case was also transported for treatment at a local hospital.
Mayor, does this validate the need for the National Guard here in D.C.?
What we know, Andrea, is that this is a targeted shooting. One individual who appeared to target these guardsmen, that individual has been taken into custody.
We'll be back in just a moment as we continue tracking today's top stories. The centerpiece of many Thanksgiving tables is turkey. And joining us now live to talk about the best ways to prepare your turkey is Andrea Balatevich. She is an expert at the Butterball Turkey Talk Line. So first, one of the most controversial issues, of course, the turkey. Do you salt your turkey? Do you brine your turkey? What are the pros and cons?
Well, here at the Butterball Turkey Talk Line, that's one of the questions we are getting. The Butterball turkeys are already deep basted with a light salt solution, so it's not necessary. All you need to do is unwrap it, place it on a rack in your roasting pan, and roast it at 325 degrees. But if you do want to do some of the brining, reduce that salt so that your gravy and your turkey isn't too salty.
We are personally a brining turkey family in my house. I actually, last night after work, was taking my turkey and getting it in the brine and getting it in the fridge so it's got some time to sit for a couple days. Most turkeys, I want to say, come with that little button that indicates when the bird is supposed to be done. Now, should people trust that little button, or should they rely on something like a probe thermometer?
No, a pop-up timer is definitely not accurate, and it's not deep enough in the meat. You want to use a meat thermometer to check the temperature of the turkey so that you know it's done for food safety. Deep in the breast and deep in the thigh, that should reach 170 degrees Fahrenheit. And then if you've stuffed your turkey like we have here, test that as well. That needs to reach 165 degrees Fahrenheit for food safety.
And do you recommend people take their turkeys out a little before 170 and then kind of rest it on the counter for it to continue to come up to that final temperature?
Really, for best eating quality and for food safety, get the temperature to that 170. And then you do want to have that resting time. You can cover it with foil and clean bath towels. That'll insulate it. Then you have time to do your side dishes. But get to those proper temperatures for food safety.
Got it. So by now, turkey should already be defrosted. But for those procrastinators out there, if the bird is still in the freezer, can they get it safely defrosted in time to cook it tomorrow?
So Butterball has a cold water thawing method, and that's to submerge the turkey in your sink in cold tap water. You're going to keep refreshing that water about every 30 minutes, and it'll thaw 1 pound for every 30 minutes. So you can give us a call at 1-800-BUTTERBALL. We'll let you know how long it's going to take. But you could also check out our website, butterball.com. We have a calculator, and you would type in the pounds that you have of turkey, and we'll tell you how long it's going to take to thaw in that cold water thawing method. Also, how long it's going to take to roast.
Perfect. Well, for some people, the best part of the turkey is that crispy skin on the outside. I know that's my sister-in-law's favorite part. So what are your tips for getting that nice crispy skin, but not burning it?
Right. So a couple of tips here. You want to make sure you're roasting on a rack in a roasting pan. That lifts it up, allows for that even heat flow so it cooks evenly and gets crisp. And then before you put it in the oven, you're just going to brush it with a little bit of vegetable oil. That's going to help give that browning and crispy skin. If you see that it's getting a little too dark, you can put a little tent of foil to shield the area of the breast that's getting too dark, and that won't harm it. But you definitely want to make sure you get to those proper temperatures, and then you know your turkey's ready to come out of the oven.
That little aluminum foil shield, a nice trick. It's kind of like when people bake a pie and you might cover the outside crust edge to make sure that it doesn't burn, but the interior of your pie is properly cooked. Andrea Balatevich, expert at Butterball Turkey Talk Line. Thank you so much for sharing some turkey tips that hopefully everyone can take into their kitchens in the next day or so.
Happy Thanksgiving. Thanks for having us.
And Thanksgiving is all about food, family, and fun. But which dish reigns supreme? Are we talking turkey, mac and cheese? Is it a dessert? To help answer this very important Turkey Talk question is our Scripps News political director, Andrew Rafferty, joining me now live in the studio with results from a new Scripps News poll.
That's right.
What did we learn?
We got to the heart of the Thanksgiving issue that is on top of everyone's mind. Okay, so we can say definitively, turkey reigns supreme. That's number one. But actually, do you have a guess of what people's second favorite Thanksgiving dish is?
A second favorite? I mean, I know what my favorite is, but I'm going to go, is it a dessert?
It is not like dessert. Look at these findings.
All right,
they're going to blow
ready.
your mind. This is Scripps News Talker Research. Yes, a majority say that turkey is number one. Number two is stuffing.
That's me. That's my favorite.
I hate stuffing. And so it's good that we are not spending Thanksgiving together. But you see mashed potatoes, kind of a dark horse there. 32. Mac and cheese, I feel like that is a little bit controversial. I don't think that's on every dinner table
like that's more
on
of a Southern
Thanksgiving. And then pie. I think pie would be my answer. But, you know, we had a lot of write-ins for ham, too.
Okay.
A lot of people, I associate ham more with like Christmas, Thanksgiving, but a lot of people out there are doing Thanksgiving hams, too. But
As a turkey alternative, I've heard, for people who don't like turkey.
Right, which is, you know, to each their own. Another big finding from this is people's favorite Thanksgiving activity. I feel like more than a lot of other holidays, Thanksgiving has a lot of stuff associated with it. Of course, there's the dinner.
Football.
There's football. Your Kansas City Chiefs, I believe, are playing.
I know, they are playing the
Hopefully
Cowboys. I talked to Jerry Jones about it earlier this morning.
Well, he's probably a good perspective to have on that. I'm feeling how he's feeling about it. There's the Macy's Day Parade. There's jogging. But, this is perhaps heartening. People's favorite Thanksgiving activity is, drumroll please, spending time with family. Eating, still a majority. Watching sports, 25%. The stuff about like watching the Macy's Day Parade, those turkey trots, those were only polling in about the single digits. So it's all about spending time with your loved ones.
I like that, though. Yeah. That is what Thanksgiving is supposed to be about being grateful, about family time. But I gotta ask, what do you have against stuffing?
I give it a try every year. I think it's the texture. So I'll give it another try again tomorrow to see, your taste buds change as you mature, as you age. So maybe I'll come back with a new opinion on Friday, which I'd be happy to come back and share with you. But for now, I think I'm staying away from the stuff.
It's a multi-day process in my house because we're gluten-free, so I have to make gluten-free bread, and then I got to dry it out, and then I got to use it to make my stuffing.
But no hate. Whatever your thing is, if you like stuffing, great. Go for it.
It's my favorite. I was glad to see that was number 2 on the list. I should have gone with my gut and just said it.
Yeah.
All right, Scripps News political director Andrew Rafferty with the important information that we need to know today. Top turkey talk. Andrew, thank you.
Thanks.
More and more shoppers this holiday season will be using AI to help them find the right gift at the right price. And now some companies are making that easier than ever. One of the hot trends this shopping season is artificial intelligence.
Doing a quick search.
We found Matt Huff using ChatGPT to search TV deals at Best Buy.
And it will tell me about the displays, the models, the years, the smart operations.
Huff says tracking down new features on a budget used to be overwhelming.
It just really brings it all to the forefront for me and makes it easy decision making.
An Intuit QuickBooks report shows 4 in 10 shoppers plan to use AI as a shopping sidekick.
People are looking for deals, they're looking for gift recommendations.
AI is popping up inside big retailers and apps. Amazon's Rufus shows reviews, price history, and product comparisons. This year, Walmart and Target announced partnerships with OpenAI, moves that will let shoppers buy from those stores directly inside ChatGPT.
You want a tool designed for shopping, especially in AI.
Bobby Goshal is CEO of Dupe, a platform that uses AI to help shoppers find similar, lower-priced versions, or dupes.
People come to Dupe to save money, first and foremost, but they leave Dupe feeling like they've done their research.
Goshal says Dupe users often find savings of about 60 to 70%. Shopping expert Trey Bodge says AI is great for gift ideas, but finds it can lag on current deals.
Remember, the AI is pulling from the information that's already out there, and it's moving so quickly, right? So it's very hard for the chatbot to be really accurate.
Even if AI doesn't find the best price, most shoppers say it saves time, which is a gift in itself.
I got 2 TVs lined up and a refrigerator.
That way you don't waste your money. John Mattery, Scripps News Group.
This is Today As It Happened, and we are thankful for all the time you have spent with us reviewing the top stories of the day here on Scripps News. I'm Stephanie Liebergen. Have an excellent Wednesday night and a happy Thanksgiving.